Good day and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to reveal a truth and silent record which has existed for over a decade. Grab your popcorn while we proceed. In May 2025, fashion designer Veekee James made headlines across Africa. Her 30th birthday wasn't just glamorous, it was legendary. But what got everyone talking was the jaw-dropping, towering 30-tier cake that stood 20 feet tall. Her cake designer boldly claimed that this was the tallest cake in Africa. But here's the thing. That claim isn't entirely true. Let's explore the facts, dive into history, and give credit to the actual holder of that record. Veekee's cake was nothing short of a masterpiece. 30 exotic elegant tiers, perfectly stacked, designed in sparkling white with floral accents. It reportedly cost 18 million naira, roughly $18,000, and took around 18 hours to assemble at the venue. Videos and photos of the cake quickly went viral, with fans celebrating it as a historic creation. In an Instagram post and in-person interviews, the baker declared that the cake was the tallest ever made in Africa. But is that statement based on fact or on hype? Let's rewind to 2013. In Lagos, Nigeria, a world-renowned baker named Tosan Jemide unveiled a cake that would go on to make history. Standing at 28 feet tall, this cake was displayed during his Cake-a-thon event at the Silverbird Galleria. It was built over several days with careful engineering and artistic design. Let's check out the process, and how he spent over 60 hours making what would later become a record others would sort to beat.
Guys, another slabos happening.
Tosan Jemide has dedicated his life to making lasting memories. His outfit, Cakes by Tosan, is most popular with brides. And making them happy has been his only calling, at least until now.
The bridezillas are easy compared to this. This has been a major challenge.
Tosa is attempting a feat which should place him in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Tallest Cake in Africa, it's a project that we've been working on. We always have exhibitions, we showcase our work. This time around we thought, go for more of a challenge that would also project the image of Africa, showing that there's goodness that comes from Africa.
The tallest cake in Africa will measure over 8.5 meters. That's almost the same height as a 3-story building, and a good meter taller than the previous African record holder. A lot of structural work has gone into the cake to make sure it stands tall and doesn't crumble.
We looked at weights, we looked at heights, we looked at balance, so many things. Of course, we're thinking, how are we going to carry the cakes up, and stand them and stack them one after the other. It's been a lot of thinking, back and forth, trial and error, the baking of the cakes, trying to get the exact quantities, what we need to bake each size.
This is where Tosa plans to bring in all his creative energy, the design room. Right now, he and his team are working on building this enormous cake, which will become a part of baking history. It'll also inspire and showcase the vast creativity on the African continent. And after days of hard work, planning and measuring, this is what the tallest cake in Africa looks like. A 10-tiered sugarcraft wonder.
I knew he'd do it because he's my cake hero. He hasn't been home for 2 days, so I knew he was working and he hadn't gotten any sleep since. When I came, I saw the top, so I said, wow, this cake is nice.
Each layer has its own concept, has its own idea. So it's like it's telling a story from the bottom till it gets to the top.
That was a bit surprising because I didn't realize it was this tall.
With Tosa pulling off his culinary masterpiece, there are going to be some very happy children. Tosa's donating a tier of cake to every orphanage in Lagos for Children's Day.
Unlike many tall cakes today that contain decorative dummies or internal scaffolding, Tosan's cake was fully documented, verified, and even submitted for review by Guinness World Records. Let's compare these two incredible creations. Veekee's cake stands at a measured height of 20 feet, 30 tiers, total cost of 18 million naira, produced in May 2025, and its purpose was specifically for Veekee James's birthday. As regards verification, as at the time of making this video, there has been none officially documented. In contrast, Tosan Jemide's cake stands at a measure height of 28 feet, 9 to 10 tiers of massive blocks. Its cost remains unknown, but ranges at the very industrial scale. Its year of production is 2013. Purpose is for cake exhibition. Verification, media covered and Guinness reviewed. From the numbers, it's clear. While Veekee's cake was visually elaborate and rich in detail, it simply doesn't surpass Tosan Jemide's record in height. Beauty and effort, absolutely impressive. But tallest in Africa? Not quite. This video isn't to downplay creativity or the success of a beautiful celebration. It's about truth. Today, viral claims often go unchecked. When a video gets millions of views, people assume it must be accurate. But records are made to be measured, verified, and respected. Celebrating art doesn't mean ignoring history. Tosan Jemide is more than just a baker. He's a pioneer in Africa's cake industry. He introduced luxury cake design on a scale previously unseen in Nigeria. Over the years, he's made cakes for presidents, celebrities, and high-end events. He trained many bakers who now lead their own businesses. The 28-foot cake wasn't just tall, it was symbolic of how far African culinary artistry had come. But the title of Africa's tallest cake still belongs to the legendary Tosan Jemide. Listen to him in an exclusive interview as he talks about his journey in the baking industry.
Hello there, my name is Tosan Jemide. I like to call myself a baker, but people call me the African cake maestro. I am of the famed Cakes by Tosan, which has grown into kind of a household name over time. I started in the year 2000 when I came into Nigeria from the UK, and I set up shop from nothing. Actually, when I came into Nigeria, I came with a suitcase and 200 pounds in my pocket, and I built quite a reputable cake company doing amazing craft and really, really great cake work. We grew, and I got into a place where I felt, it was too big for me. There was really nothing else I wanted to do again. I had done it all basically. I had won several hats, from the award-winning to the well-recognized cake maestro, and I was thinking, what else? And I also started to get tired of the grind, no sleep, continuous heating the oven, bringing out cakes, baking, covering, decorating, going to sleep, power naps, and waking up, and even if I don't have work to do, I'm like, so it started to really get to me mentally as well. I'm like, maybe I'm going crazy here. So I thought, start to think about how to wind down. This was many years ago, where I knew that when I get to 50, I really won't want to be doing that sort of grind again. So I started to think about what else to do, and we got to the point where I opened up a commercial wholesale bakery concern called Top Crust. That started in 2011, and it went very well. It was a runway success, so that now put me in a comfortable position where I felt, my retirement from active cake baking, was kind of, in quote, guaranteed, and I could really step aside when I wanted to, So when I turned 50, I felt, it was time for me to begin to pull back a bit, and rather than, do the grind of baking continuously, do it when I want to do, when I have the odd commission that I feel, I want to do this one, and if I don't want to do it, then I'm not going to do it, So, and then I also wanted it to be a time where I call the legacy phase of my life, where I'm focused on giving back and, mentoring and bringing and raising people up. So that has been a journey, so far. And one of the highlights of this journey is when, I built the tallest cake in Africa, which was a 28-foot edifice. It was displayed at the Galleria in Victoria Island, and that was a lot of hard work, but it was real glory, and it put the Nigerian cake industry on the global map, because it did draw a lot of attention, and in so many ways too, my entrance into the cake industry, I came with a lot of glam and wow factor. My cakes used to be tall, character, attitude, a lot of drama, so people started seeing cakes differently. And, I also had the impudence, in quote, to charge some crazy amounts of money, this is the value of my cake. And so that started to really create more value down the line. From where I stand, it's been an awesome journey so far, but I tell you something, it's been crazy. It's been dreary sometimes. I've wanted to give up so many times, and I just get fed up. But, a lot has happened, in this journey, and I would say that I have come thus far, and I would like to share that story of how difficult it's been, with you. I actually stumbled into cakes. Cakes was never my dream career. I didn't grow up thinking, when you're a child, you're saying, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. Yeah, I was an NFA, I didn't want to be anything. People used to say, I want to be a doctor. I'm like, I can't be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I said, no, I don't like to argue, I don't want to be a lawyer. So what do you want to be? Nothing. So I had really nothing that I wanted to be. But one thing that I had going for me was that I had a very creative flair. That was established from time, and, I was really good in the kitchen. My mom used to do a lot of cakes. My mom was an excellent chef. She was a baker. She was a homemaker altogether, So she used to do a lot of work at home, baking cakes for weddings and birthdays, and I was like her go-to guy, where, of all the kids, I was the only one who would actually succumb to doing the chores when it comes to preparing the things down and just prepping her for the work she wanted to do. Everybody else would basically run away. So she had a way around, just sweet talking me into helping her cream the sugar and butter, which at that time there were no mixers, so it was all hand. She had a way of just getting me to do all the work. She had a day job, so she would go to work and basically come back hoping that Tosan had gotten everything ready, which I always used to do, and I never really baked a cake on my own, but, I used to help her a lot. Well, unfortunately, my mom passed when I was 13 going on 14, and it was very sad, painful, but somehow or the other, that now opened the door for me in the cake making career. So 3 years after my mom passed, my eldest brother was getting married. And my brother was really gutted because he was like, I'm not going to pay for a wedding cake. My mom had given so many free cakes out, and how can we now pay for a cake from this family? It's not heard of. So my brother was like, well, we have to look for who's going to bake the cake from within. And if anybody's going to bake it, it's going to be you, Tosan. I'm like, I've never baked a cake in my life. But, he says, well, if anybody can bake it, it will be you. You have the best chance to bake a cake. You knew what mom used to do. You never did it, but you knew what she used to do. After a lot of battle and struggle and rebellion, I actually succumbed, and it was a very, very uphill task for me. I was scared, beyond my imagination. I thought, okay, I'll try it. So I went into the archives, dug up all my mom's old baking stuff, her books, baking pans, everything, basically. I just dug everything out. In those days, we really had no resources. There was no online, there was no internet, there was nothing that you could refer to. It was just the old books that my mom had, and I read through them. I set up a lab. I started to try different things, recipes, baked a few times, had some really bad disasters, started again, and eventually I got something that, was a semblance of a decent enough cake. So I ticked that off, went on to decorating, and, tried. It was royal icing at that time. Gosh, royal icing was so difficult to work with. You know, you had to get the right consistency of the real icing. You know, there were no molds. There was no shortcuts when it came to decorating a cake then. You just had to know how to do it. You know, so after so much effort, you know, I got something that I felt, okay, I can pull this through, you know, and prepared for the wedding. Wedding came, I did the cake, you know, and everybody thought, oh, wow, 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 amazing. But, you know, it was a terribly ugly cake. You know, when I think about how the cake, my memory of the cake now, and, you know, what I eventually transcended into, the kind of work that I do now, you know, I mean, you can't compare, you know, but they say, hey, do not despise the days of little beginnings, you know, and so I'm very proud of my first cake ever, which was a wedding cake, and it was made for my brother, and really that's how I started. This cake was baked just a few months before I started uni, went into uni. By the time I got into university, I also found out that I had become a serial entrepreneur because Dad used to give me some kind of pocket money that I would just question and say, you know, what am I going to use this money for? By the time I go 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, before the month ends, I'm done. So I started looking inward, you know, what can I do? What can I do? So I had my hustle where I used to do a lot of catering. Most of the parties I used to cater for in UI when I was there. And then I also had a clothing concern that I used to run while I was in school. You know, I had different tailors. I'd go to the market, get fabrics. All my clothes, I used to make them. And when people would say, oh, well, where do you get nice? Okay, make one for me, make one for me. You know, I basically turned into a tailor while I was at school. So that used to give me some extra cash, you know, doing the tailoring and then the catering. But cakes I used to do, people used to ask for cakes, but nothing really serious. But by the time I finished school, I went straight into clothing. I didn't work for anyone. I did my youth service in a clothing outfit somewhere in Ikeja. By the time I'd finished youth corps, I started my own business. I bought, you know, 2 small machines. I was working out of a room in my cousin's house, you know, and, you know, it started to grow in leaps and bounds. We got a shop, we got a factory, you know, so, I mean, I'd established a business in clothing, and clothing line was very, very casual. It was fun too, you know, so I was enjoying that immensely, but, you know, something kept niggling at me. I always still used to get the odd cake order. The very close family friend or the cousin or, you know, someone whose head that I made for a cousin would come and say, you know, I wanted a wedding cake or I wanted a birthday cake, and, you know, I would do it, but, you know, I felt very inadequate in so many ways because I had no formal or technical training. So that used to niggle at me, you know, in a way that I didn't have the confidence to really blow out. But it was there. And the more the orders came, the more that pressure was on me, you know, what can I do with this? You know, is this where, you know, I'm being led to kind of question in my mind? You know, so I got to a point where, you know, I thought, okay, just give it a shot. At that time, there was no formal training being done in this country at all. There are just 1 or 2 people that I knew who were doing cakes in some sort of commercial, in a commercial level. But they didn't want to train. As much as I talked to them, so I want to learn, they were not interested in training. So the only option I had was actually to go somewhere to learn. Went to the UK. By the time I got there, you know, I saw that there was so much I wanted to learn, and it wasn't going to be just a stint like I thought. You know, initially I thought, okay, go for 1 month, just go learn, come back. But when I got there, you know, I knew I had to stay and learn in the system. And my preferred mode of learning, based on the things that I had seen, was actually work, you know, in the industry, get into the space, see how things are done commercially. And that kind of took me, you know, about 4 years, you know, working all sorts of odd jobs. Sometimes it used to be very painful. I worked in a bakery where I would wake up at 3 a.m., start the morning shift, get the bread going, sort out the cakes. Then I moved to Coughlands. I worked in Greg's. I eventually got this very nice posh place in Knightsbridge where, I really enjoyed the work, and it was like real craft. So I think that was the highlight of my working. It was called Gloriettes, and at Gloriettes we used to make like the cakes for all the like high street shops. So that was what, the highlight of my working in the UK was, and that gave me some real good experience that I would never have gotten from any school. In that time, I was also doing a lot of cakes at home. People were commissioning me for wedding cakes. I was still doing catering then, so back in England, I would cater for a wedding. I would do the wedding cake, and, little or no help. It was really hard work. I started to think, I can't do the two together, Had my day job, had my side hustle at home. So I slowly started to wind down on my day job. Took one day out of my regular routine. Then I started working part-time working 4 days a week, part-time working 3 days a week, part-time working 2 days a week, part-time working 1 day a week. Then I said, no, I'm not working 1 day a week. There's no point. So at that point, it was now crunch time to decide, do I really want to start a full-fledged business in the UK? And I'd always had my reservations of staying in the UK. I also felt that my potentials would be maximized if I came back to Nigeria. I felt that, my impact would be felt a lot more if I came back to Nigeria. So, I took the plunge and decided to come back to Nigeria. At that point, everybody thought I was crazy, because it wasn't anything that I planned. It was very spontaneous, which is usually what I do in my crazy moments. I just go for it. I'm not discussing with anyone. I'm just doing what my intuition has told me to do. And, I opted, came back to Nigeria. When I came to Nigeria, I came with 2 suitcases. And those suitcases, one was my personal belongings. The other one had, some cake stuff that I'd, just put together. And I didn't have any money. I had £200 in my pocket, but I came all the same. I started staying with my sister somewhere in Ikeja. She had a very small pokey flat, and she allowed me use a cubicle in that flat to start off my cake work. That cubicle was it was a cubicle. It was a cubicle, and I started work from there, all by myself. Just started to churn out some really amazing cakes, and in no time, my orders were just pouring in. I couldn't manage the orders, so I had to get more hands. And remember at that time, the cake space was really vacant. People were doing cakes, but people were not doing amazing cakes. So when I came, I started to offer out of the ordinary, and that just blew people's minds. Anybody who saw the cake would be like, wow, who did this? Where did you get this cake from? There's this guy in town, Tosan. And before I knew it, my name was buzzing all over the place. I came to Nigeria in January of 2000. By December of 2000, I had rented a duplex, set up a shop there, bought a car. I was basically all set up, and thereafter, business actually just blew, As hard as work was, I didn't really have time to do anything else. because there were times where I would churn out 7 cakes in one weekend, and the next weekend I would have 8 wedding cakes, and the weekend after that I'll have 6 wedding cakes, and the weekend after that I can have 5 wedding cakes, and then 10 wedding cakes, and it was crazy. It was madness, you know. My team, I had an excellent team that I built from scratch. It was an amazing team, you know, and we always used to work non-stop, day and night, night and day. But the advantage I had was because I was working from home, I basically created my back house into my factory. So it was a bit easy in the sense that I didn't have to do the commuting. So there were times, you know, in 2 weeks, I wouldn't even see the road outside. In 1 month, I would just basically go and buy suya across the road and come back. I'm not going anywhere because I don't need to go anywhere. Work was from home, work was intense, work was like just non-stop, you know, and it was on and on and on and on. And, you know, those were times that I really, really cherished because in the hard work, I could see, you know, I could see the fruits, I could see the benefits of hard work coming with nothing to Nigeria and actually seeing my business grow, you know, from leaps to bounds in little or no time, just because I just focused and focused and focused. I really didn't care what anybody was doing. I wasn't looking at who was doing cakes or not doing cakes and what kind of cakes they were doing. I just was passionate about what I was doing. I just working my way through everything that I did, you know. So that was one of, you know, the highlights of my career.
In conclusion, Veekee James's birthday cake was beautiful, grand, and unforgettable. Let's give credit where it's due, honor the greats, and keep encouraging future creativity based on truth and respect. If you found this video educational, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe for more content that tells the truth behind the trends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell for more interesting videos. Let's keep truth trending. I will see you in another video.